Welcome to the Virtual Agile Meetup. My name is Helen Garcia. I'm an Agile coach, and my co-host is Ines Garcia. Would you like to say any quick words, Ines? Just give us away.
Yeah, thank you ever so much for coming to the first round of 2023. Yeah,
Right.
I'm Ines Garcia. I'm an Agile coach, and I get involved with trillion things, as many of you know. And today I'm your co-host.
Thank you, Ines. And where was the Virtual Agile born? It was kind of born in 2020. Remember that year that happened that we're not going to talk about, but people used to ask Ines and I, but how are you still working in Agile? Because we're all remote and we're not in, face to face in person. What the heck, what's going on? And we were quite baffled by that. So hence we birthed Virtual Agile Meetup to talk about these kind of subjects. So thank you again for joining. So today, like you would have seen, Ines is recording. We are recording these sessions. Why do we record? So that we can share with our fellow Agilists, non-Agilists, lovers, haters, everybody in between, in order to share the knowledge and the discussions that we have. So I'd love to see your faces, but if you're not uncomfortable with that, that's totally fine as well. Just stay as you are. This forum is this meetup is about 90 minutes, so we have 70 minutes left. As you know, if you are a regular, we are fairly hands off. So if you have a question, just either put it in the chat, put your hands up, unmute, whatever it is that you want to do. We have got the wonderful Dustin with us today, and he's also very comfortable with whatever you feel comfortable with. So happy days. Good. So if you have been here before, you'll know that I like a little bit of a warm-up, and I'm a big fan of rock, paper, scissors. Do you guys know? Give me maybe a hands up, or a virtual or an actual hand up. Great. Cool, you will know. Yeah. Excuse me. Right, so let's test your knowledge and your experience in rock, paper, scissors. Then you will see that it's a little bit different, and we're going to use it. And I use this a lot in my day-to-day with teams because it's a great decision-making tool, I find. So you've got the rock. If I can see your greatest rocks, and if you're not on camera, that's okay. You can still do it. I can still feel the rocks within me. That's not a really odd thing to say. Excellent. No, yeah. Renee, thank you. Dustin, beautiful. Kelvin, excellent. Hassan, thank you. Lovely rocks. What about papers? We got any papers in the room? Yeah, some nice papers. Great. You're getting the hang of this. Cool. Scissors. Now, the scissors is a careful one. If you had a bad day, just be wary about what you do. Cool. We've got some scissors. Any other scissors, or is it just me? Yes, love it. Thank you very much. So hopefully we've warmed up our hands, because that's what you need to do when you're in a meetup. So to put it to the test, then I have 3 questions. For the 3 questions, you are either going to ask a rock, a paper, or a scissor. Hopefully pretty simple. And if you want to put it in the chat as well, feel free to put it in the chat. So the first question is this. I have been known to force change on others and had success. All scissors. Conscious that I may have influenced that. I didn't mean to. I just haven't. Just so you know. I'm good at noticing when I need to change my own actions to better support others. A couple of papers, couple of rocks, which is nice. It's good to be able to recognize, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And the last question is, change is in the eye of the beholder. Got some rocks and a couple of papers, so thank you very much. Interesting to see the understanding of what we feel about change and how we can change it and influence others. So thank you for that. And now I'm going to come to a quote that I did steal from you, Dustin, because I saw it and it just jumped out from us. And I thought, well, I'll steal that as well. So how often do we influence for our own benefit over other people's needs is a question that I had. And how can we move away from this to really kind of trying to support others? It's another thing that sort of cropped up to me when I was thinking about and I saw this quote. And so today we do have with us Dustin, and Dustin's going to talk to us about, positively consulting. So change, how you try to change others, which is going to be quite a topic of interest, I hope. And we're really excited to have you here. I know that Ines particularly has been waiting for this. Is it years or months or weeks? Years? Is that a fair comment? I'm not sure.
It feels like years, yeah.
Feels like years. So it's really great to have you on board. And Dustin, you sort of describe yourself, and I see you as we've worked very lightly together in the past for the Agile Online Summit. That this you are what you say on the tin. You welcome people, you bring ideas, you share ideas, collaborate, you embrace, and you always do it with a smile on your face. And that is, that can be really hard, can't it? And I really love that about the energy that you bring. So with that, I would love to welcome you to the stage of the Virtual Agile Meetup, and I'm going to just hand over.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. And as Helen mentioned, I did get a chance to work with Helen and Ines for the Agile Online Summit and absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So as I mentioned, my name is Dustin Thostenson. I live in Iowa of the US. So if you see the United States, we're kind of right in that area here where people fly over when trying to go from one big city to the other big city. Where we live, where all the food is grown. I think my entire life, I grew up in Minnesota, which is also in the Midwest. I don't think that I've ever lived more than 2 blocks away from a cornfield. And yet my kids don't think that they're country. So that's wonderful. If I do start having my Minnesota accent come out, and I get the long O's in there, just let me, raise your hands, tell me that I'm not being understood. Sometimes the accent kicks in. You do see on the bottom right there, my personal mantra is understand, be understood. And I'm going to ask you to hold me responsible to that. For me, this is very important. It drives my day. I'm always in an engagement with somebody else, and I want to understand what they're trying to tell me before I focus on trying to push my answers upon them. I also want to make sure that the way I communicate with them is something that is easy. I don't want to pound a square peg into a round hole. I don't want to use examples that they don't understand or speak too quickly. So as Helen had mentioned, this is a very open setting. If I say something that you don't understand, please stop me. Tell me to go back a slide. I won't be offended. I would like as well, if you have your phones, I'm trying out something new today. I'm trying out Slido. So if you could scan that QR code throughout the event today, we're going to have a couple of stops, a couple of check-ins, and I'd like to get feedback from everybody here. The intent of this presentation is not for me to talk at you, but for us to do a little bit of a discovery together. That's really kind of important for me. My background is I've been in the industry for a couple of decades now. As we were talking beforehand, I've got one daughter who had her sweet 16th birthday yesterday, and I've got another daughter who's already 22. So I've been playing this game a bit. My youngest of 4 is currently 13. So 3 teenagers in the house right now. But for me, the thing that I find interesting through my career of doing software development, technical mentoring and training, teaching at a community college, agile coaching, all of those types of things, the thing that I have found most interesting is not solving problems myself with technology, but working with teams to help create better environments so that they can kind of be their best. So people can show up to work every day with a smile on their face and enjoy what they're doing, because I've had that and I think other people deserve it. And I've also had the opposite, where I worked in a basement. And at one point I didn't get to see the sun for a week straight. Came in early, left late. They gave us really bad pizza to keep us at our desks. I've experienced that spectrum. And what's important for me, the reason that I go out and do my thing, is I want to make sure that other people have good experiences as well. I think we all deserve that. None of us should be treated like cogs. We're not a cost center. We're humans that are doing amazing things. So that's important to me. And that's really the crux of the talk today, influence positively. Originally, the talk was failure to launch, which is why I've got that icon in or the picture in the back of that rocket that is failing. But that was kind of a negative connotation. And then I titled the talk, "If you're fighting, you're failing," hoping to draw attention to the point where if you feel like you're fighting somebody else, then that's probably not a good sign. And my latest iteration here is influence positively, because I think it really does come down to the thing that we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. And the reason that this talk, I'm giving it, I woke up one morning at about 3, 4 in the morning, and I began the format of this talk because it finally appeared to me as I was thinking about things in my dreams. I was working with a lot of people who were trying different approaches to help other people, and they were failing at it. They were failing bad. People were getting fired. People were getting mad. I did not want to have to come home and tell my wife that I lost my job because I annoyed the client or I made somebody cry. I did not want to have to tell my kids that they could not have the things that they want. So for me, focusing on that environment, this talk is really about how we engage, how people can fail, failures that I've experienced, failures that I've seen, and how to kind of try to find a better way to go about doing that. So again, the problem statement here is having skills and trying to help isn't enough. And some of the things that I'm going to say today might seem really simple, like no duh, but they're true. They're simple truisms that I've identified that I think are often overlooked. You know, there are people who learn things. They learn test-driven development, they learn Scrum, they learn Kanban, and it works for them. So they want to go out and share that knowledge with other people. I've got these great answers. And they try to inflict it on folks. They try to kind of force them through. I really like the questions that Ellen opened up with. We try to push these answers upon other people because we know these answers are true because we experienced it, right? I think there's that Greek mythology of Cassandra. Her penalty for whatever she had done was that she will be able to see the future and tell everybody about it, but nobody will believe her. And that can be incredibly frustrating. And I've seen people get frustrated with that and lash out at folks. Do you know how much money I make? Because sometimes consultants might make a lot of money. Like that should change somebody else's opinion to listen to them. Do you know who I am? Do you know that I run the virtual Agile meetup? You should listen to me. Kind of a big deal. Do you know what books I've written? Right, Inez? I'm an author. You should listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Did you see who retweeted me? You see how many likes I got on TikTok? Like all these things that people get really frustrated about because they believe that they are a credible source worthy of being listened to. And you just want them to do what you say. But again, it's not enough. So going back to that Jerry Weinberg quote, consulting may be defined as the art of influencing people at their request. And the first time I read this book in 2008, when I decided to quit my full-time job and go into independent consulting, I read that and I was like, okay, great. And I moved on. And then about a decade later, I read it again and I was surprised. I go, oh, okay, I get it. And I want to be clear here. As I talk about consulting today, I'm not talking about somebody who has a business card that says consultant. I'm not talking about somebody who is external to your company. I am talking about this definition here. Do you have ideas? Would you like other people to understand your ideas and implement them? Maybe it's a formal title. Maybe you're just another person on the team. But the focus of this talk really is around influencing people at their request. To me, this kind of comes down to the core of a lot of unnecessary pain. So this is going to be a pretty simple talk. I think there's 36 slides total, but there's really like, I don't know, maybe like 7. There's really one slide that we're going to keep going off over and over and over. And the basic entities are consultant, the person who is trying to influence somebody at their request, and client. And I'm going to use client in a very generic term. Client could be a person, it could be a team, it could be an entire entity, right? My client could be Bob, or it could be a Fortune 5 company. We're being pretty generic here. And I may talk at some high levels, some conceptual values and principles types of levels, but I can give concrete answers as well. If you think that I'm talking too fluffy, feel free to jump in. Use that Slido app, ask questions, raise your hands, and I'll try to give some better examples that might resonate more. So we do have some, our first Slido break is coming up here. So again, if you haven't gone out, please go on your phone to Slido and type in that number there. And as a prompt, I'm going to steal a page or two out of Lisa Atkins' Coaching Agile book, because I literally just went through this book. I went through these pages a couple weeks ago in a book club that we're at. And I thought that was a nice primer for Agile coach failure modes. But again, general ideas of people who are finding themselves in a failure mode. So let's try some new tech here. I'm going to slide over Slido. And let's see what we got going on here. So what are some of the worst failures that you've seen? And they may like to enter some examples in the focus of influencing. I have seen one person demand that the CIO introduce him to the team because he thought that he needed the CIO's approval and transfer of power to be effective. When the CIO said, I don't think that's necessary, you can talk to them yourself, the CIO walked into his office, closed the door, and the consultant followed him in and reopened the door. No, I don't think you understand. He got fired. As people are typing, I've seen people get mad when they recognize the team wasn't doing Kanban correctly. They weren't setting up their swim lanes correctly, and they got mad at the team for doing that. All right, forcing people back into the office. Would anybody like to talk about that one a little bit? I'm glad we mentioned that because later in the talk, we will get into different areas of power and how power can be used. All right. Would anybody like to speak on the forcing people back into the office? That's okay if we don't. I just want to make sure people have opportunities there.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from my perspective that over the last few months, it can become quite tense, having new policies saying certain days when people has built their lives in however way works. So yeah, it can be very friction and unfortunately push people out because the marketplace is good enough. So yeah.
Yeah, the market has changed, hasn't it? Sticking only to the process because the process is there for a reason. Is this to suggest that safe might not be the answer? We don't just have to follow safe? Because that's not what the literature says.
Yeah, so I put that one because I come across this almost daily, regardless whether it's safe, Scrum, Kanban, whatever it is, or just calling up your bank to ask for something. If it's not the process, then, you know, I constantly get told about, you know, the process was made for a reason. I tend to ask, well, who made the process? And they were like, you know, Dave in HR. And you're like, cool. So it was a human being then. Great. That means that we can change it. But that's often not received as well as I would like.
I can understand that.
Yes.
Having a solution in mind before understanding the client and their problem. Oh, I like that one. I like that one. I have the right answers. Just listen to me. Would anybody like to speak to that? All right, I need to ask this question because again, I'm working with a branch of English, and I don't know what Bonnie is. Given Bonnie, Bonnie. Can somebody help me out with that?
I thought it was the plural of bonus.
Oh. Well, again, I was raised in the American public school system, so please treat your expectations kindly.
And I'm not native speaking, so.
No, I like that though. Okay.
Here in Germany, people take Latin very seriously. So if you don't say spaghetto for just one, you're gonna get killed. You gotta say spaghetto. You can't say spaghetti for one piece. Same thing with boni. Yeah. It's very serious stuff. Latin is very serious.
Spaghetto. I'm gonna write that down. Because my wife said we're having pasta tonight, so if I'm not hungry, I'm just gonna ask for a spaghetto. And then sleep on the couch. All right. I like good behavior. Interesting, only for single people. Only sharing the ideas, not following own guidelines, failing to lead by example. I like that one. Modeling behavior, yeah. Do as I say, not as I do. Great. And I'll pause really quick since we are introducing new technology. Did anybody have any issues with Slido at all? All right, cool. I'm a software developer by trade, so I'm used to technology failing, period. Or maybe that's just the stuff that I've been building. All right, so all right, interesting. My screen appears to have frozen. Okay, so here's the basic structure of this the presentation. We are going to go back and build on this the whole time. We'll just keep introducing new concepts until it looks like until it looks like my office, quite honestly. It's not going to be pretty, but there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. My wife is very happy when we moved in here to let me be in this office, so all of my eclectic stuff can be in one spot, and then we shut the door when guests come over. So we've got our consultant on the left, the client on the right. And the majority of this talk is going to be about the interactions between the client and the consultant, the give and take, the dance. So hopefully this is a model that we can build off of. And from there, from that framing, we'll continue to build on. And as soon as I introduced the framing, I took the framing away. How smart of me. But the first thing I wanted to mention is Maslow's hierarchy. And this was something that I learned in college in that psych class that I had to take. And then I forgot about it because I was learning programming and not psychology. And what do I need economics and psych and philosophy for? I'm a programmer. Well, at one point in my career, I started to think about things and realized that the problems I was facing were not technical in nature. And I got very frustrated with people, and I got mad at a lot of people, got mad at myself. And this Maslow's hierarchy came back to me. And I started to remember how different needs build off of each other. If I have needs of food and water or rest, if I don't have those needs met, I'm not very good. I learned that again last week. I barked at somebody because I was tired. If I don't have my security and safety taken care of, I'm probably not going to care about how many people like my tweets, right? You can't have higher level desires and needs met if lower level needs are not met. And I introduced this because I think it's important for people to remember that about themselves. Because with change, you get to control yourself. That's it. I can't control anybody else. I can only control myself. And I'm not great at that, right? I'm not signing up for Ironman contests like Helen. She's probably doing a better job of controlling herself than I am, but that's okay. I accept it. So with that Maslow's hierarchy, we can start thinking about what is my hierarchy of needs? What are the things that I'm looking for? And also, what is that of the client? We'll dig into this later, but for me, this perspective, being able to frame a relationship in this way has been very, very helpful. It has allowed me to stop hating people because of what they do and to start understanding them better. And I was in a session with Dr. Christopher Avery of the responsibility process yesterday. He goes, "Oh, you mean compassion?" I was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, that's the word, compassion." So based on some of those things, focusing on ourselves first, I think it's a very good question to say, why are you here? And I don't mean here today at the virtual Agile meetup. I mean, that's obvious because the Garcias are great people and we like to see what they present. But when you are at a client, when you're at your job, I think it's a good question to ask yourself, like, why is it that you're here? Who brought you here? That's going to be a good question to come back to later on. You'll see I'm going to give a lot of questions, sometimes more questions than answers. But if you can ask that question, why are you here? That might lead you to that to the place that you need to be. A problem well defined is a problem half solved. So this might be a good question to take a look at. Even better is, what do you want? Let's focus on ourselves. Let's be greedy. We are engaged with the client for a reason. What is that reason? Is it because you need money? I need money. I got 6 people on one income here. I need money. But how much money? Enough, right? But not all the monies. Climbing up that hierarchy, maybe I want belonging. I have made choices to work at clients and companies with agencies because of the people they have there. I want to work with good people. I enjoy that. I've taken a reduced pay so I can work with the people that I want. And that's why I'm there. And I found that to be valuable. Do you want, do you want, what's the word I'm looking for here? Esteem, right? Do you want to be recognized for your efforts? Are you doing something so somebody could say, look at that expert. That person did a great job. They transformed our company. Do you want that so you can put it on your resume, on the inside book cover? Do you want to have those successes attached to you? Do you want to grow people? Does it bring you joy to see other people grow? Do you enjoy taking the lessons that you've learned in life and sharing them with others where they can save some time and anguish and grow themselves? Or maybe you like to GSD, get stuff done. Do you like to see results? Do you want to just come in and just knock it up because you've got the skills, you can do the things really well, just unbridle me and let me do my thing? Or is this some sort of self-actualization play? Are you involved with something because you want to see if you can be the best that you can be? With all of the experience, all of the talents that you have been able to acquire, do you want to see how all of that stuff will come together and you can look back and say, I was the best me that I could be? These are really easy questions to ask, but they might be kind of hard questions to answer. And a lot of times they might get skipped over. Daniel Pink's book, Start With Why. I read it. Okay, I get it. And then he had Find Your Why, read that. I'm like, okay, cool. And there were questions in it. And of course, I just skipped through them because I was an Audible and I didn't want to take the time to actually do the work. But it sat with me. And months later, I came up with my mantra: understand, be understood. And I realized what my purpose was. I realized what motivated me. And that was to help create the environments for people to do their best. I've been on fabulous teams. I've seen the great things that we can do. And I believe that other people deserve to have that as well. I think that a lot of people are being underutilized, underappreciated. Their companies are not benefiting from it because of poor environments. And that's where I'd like to focus. I might not be worried about having the best results in different areas, but that's okay. That's what's good for me. So back to Slido. Let's ask that question of, what is it that you want to receive? And I thought, did I kick that next one off? Let me try this again here. All right, so I'd like to do a quick word cloud. And I know that this is a quick reflection, but as you engage with teams and people, what is it that you want to receive? Purpose, energy, support, impact. Understanding. I am going to ask for business cards because I don't see anybody saying money yet. And I think I could put you all to work for me if you don't care about money. ROI, I might get attention, energy, support, hope. Interesting. Well, good. Feedback. Okay. Yeah, feedback allows us to keep being better, doesn't it? Oops, I lost the one on the bottom there. There we go. Fair salary, enjoy. Good. I think that this is important because if this is the thing that you are seeking and you are not getting it, you will recognize that. And you will become frustrated because of that. If you're not aware of that, you may not know why you're frustrated. Again, I'm not coming up with anything that's rocket science here, but these are things that I have overlooked in the past. And then when you reflect on it, or when you talk to somebody else who's been doing this a little bit longer, you start to recognize those simple things that you're overlooking. All right. Okay, so when we thought about what we can give or what we can get, now let's think about what is it that you can give, because they are not going to give you things for nothing, unfortunately. So what can you give? Do you have the skills? Do you have the ability to fix things? Do you want to give them the work? Okay, cool. Maybe you want to give them some structure, a checklist, a process. You want to tell them how they can go about doing their job to make sure they do it well. Do you have some fresh ideas or some very compelling questions? Do those ideas and questions lead to insights? Do you have that ability to help drive insights for people? And do you have some emotions, right? Do you have things that will energize the team and help their culture in a non-logical manner? Our old friend Slido again. So let's think about that. What is it that you can give? Or sorry, what do you want to give? What can you give is an important thing. But what you want to give is also very important, because that's going to help us focus on all the skills that we have, our toolbox, and hopefully be, you want to give rock, paper, scissors. Yes. Want to get time, want to get insights, fun. I like it. A curious mind. That's great. Energy, perspective, care and safety, attention, focus. I like that one. I struggle with focus, so that's a very good one for me. Let's see, satisfaction, time, frame, structures, tools. I love it. What they deserve. I like that. That's a relative answer, not an absolute answer. We want to give answers. Well-being, the real stuff. Quantifiable results, experience. There's a lot of good answers up here. Energy, that's the one that's coming up. You got love in your heart and you want to spread it. Well, sorry, I'm making an assumption there. Energy comes in all forms, so maybe you just want to spread the anxiety. Curiosity, what they deserve, fun. What is slow work? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe you all don't want to come and work for you if that's the way that you roll. Spreading the anxiety, gosh.
What is slow work? I don't understand that one.
It's something I just made up because I was thinking on it. I heard of slow food, I heard of slow bear, and I think this is a quite nice movement. But everything in work has to be quick and fast and done inefficiently. So why not going to slow there and do slow work?
I like it. I like it. Thank you, Renee. Maru, what's on your mind?
This is serendipity. What Renee is talking about, that's serendipity, because I attend regularly the liberating structures design sessions where we problem solve for clients for free using liberating structures. And the guy who sets mentioned up has co-written a manifesto called the Slow Work Manifesto. Slow Thinking Manifesto. Sorry. But yeah, when I heard Slow Work by René, I thought about, oh yeah, but there is a whole community around this. I'm going to share the link in the chat if you guys want to know what these guys are doing, but they go really deep, and I enjoyed very much. It's very rewarding.
Is that based off of the book Thinking Fast and Slow?
No, they have multiple influences, probably several dozen.
All right. We had a book club on Thinking Fast and Slow last year, and that really blew my mind. That was wonderful stuff to learn. But I agree, there's definitely something in there. Excellent. Thank you. These are great answers. I like this. All right. So when we think about that dance that we have, we've got that inventory of the skills that we have up here, and they've got that box over here that we may want to fill up. And ultimately, we want to come up to an agreement. And that question that I answered earlier, why are you here? This might drive that agreement. If the reason that you're here is very clear, if you have been brought in to give a JavaScript training for an afternoon, and they're going to learn something very specific, Node.js, great. Black and white, this is what you're doing. Are you going to play the Kanban game? Are you coming in to deliver some training on something very specific? Perfect, great. It's cut and dry. Have you been brought in where senior management paid for your contract to fix the teams? Okay. How do they feel about that? How would I feel if my wife decided for my birthday to hire a physical trainer for me? That experience is going to go a little bit different if I hired the physical trainer myself. But if you are the person with the answers and you jump into the team and you are trying to inflict yourself upon them without having some sort of an agreement up front, you're going to have a bad time, okay? And again, these are really simple things, but these are patterns that I have seen people overlook to really disastrous results. Bad for the client, bad for the consultant. And again, external consultant, internal consultant, I've seen members on a team try to break past this type of thing because they were so focused on this, on the skills that they had, the things that they had to give, and not on the things that people wanted. So if you don't know what they want, how do you get there? If it's not obvious, what do you do? This is where that art of consulting comes in, the art of influence. You need to find out what they want. And I've, for a long time, I believed we've got 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Try to use them in proportion, use your mouth 20% of the time, and watch and listen. And also, anybody want to guess what this stupid icon here is in the middle?
The devil's advocate? I don't know.
That's my vampire. Just like a vampire, you have to be invited in. This isn't all for you. Some of these things are just to make myself giggle. So I appreciate you, sharing the space with me and allowing me to be a dork. But yeah, you need to kind of listen and watch and be invited in. And as you are, that's where I saw somebody mention curiosity before. Curiosity, the questions over the answers, over contempt. There's a book called Curiosity Over Contempt, or what is it now? Caitlin Walker's book. I forget. But the framing of the curiosity and the contempt, the questions and the answers, I think that is a very popular mindset if you're trying to understand other people, if these things are not clear to you. And how do you do that? You spend time with people. If you're trying to solve a problem, you have to understand what the problem is. And this is where I kind of miss the olden days, the pre-COVID days, because I got to talk to people and they would tell me about being low on energy or low on ideas, or about having calendar or scheduling issues, or maybe their testing framework looked like an upside down, it looked like an ice cream cone instead of the testing pyramid. Or maybe their manager is expecting them to have more results and putting pressure on them. Maybe they don't have an agreement. Maybe they've got some bad code that keeps breaking, or a website that is very unstable and they're always trying to fix their infrastructure. Things keep breaking. Or maybe they're broke or heartbroken, or they don't know where they're going, either in life or for the project. And when you spend time with people, these types of things will come up when you're doing more listening and watching than talking. With social media, there has been such a strong focus on people wanting to be heard. They're just all these influencers are just shoving that information out there, blasting you with all the things that they want to say. They want to control how you perceive them. What I find interesting, though, is I don't know that there's enough people who are really listening. And for the people who want to be heard, do they have enough people that are around to listen to them? And here's when we go back to our inventory, the things that we have to give. Based on the needs that are out there, what can we do with the things that we have available to us? I've got tech chops. You say that your testing structure's upside down and really bad, they're brittle and slow, I can help with that. Absolutely. Your infrastructure isn't good, app keeps crashing, I can help with that. Bad code, your CI/CD pipelines break, perfect, man, those are my skills. Let's roll up our sleeves and get stuff done. What about roadmaps down here? You know what, I like to do that. I like to explore roadmaps and find ways to make it clear and simple where we're going so we can have that understanding. And sometimes if people are kind of low on energy or they may be short of ideas, I can help out with that too. Notice the tech things are the areas that I have the most training in. My skills are the most developed in those areas, but I have been focusing on some of these other needs as well. Unfortunately, I might not be able to help out with their timeline problems. I'm going to have very little ability to manage their pay. I don't know if the people are even going to ask me who to give bonuses to, boni, as I learned today. And as far as relationship problems, I'm not sure that I'm really qualified for that either. There's some things that I just can't help with. But at least I've listened and found out and tried to bridge what I have with what they need. And I think that's somewhat validated learning. Our old friend Slido. So let's switch over there again and think about that. We're switching it up here. This is more of a poll. How comfortable do you feel going through that process of trying to understand other people? We go to university and we learn how to write code and how to deploy code and how to build projects and how to do accounting and create pivot charts in Excel. We get trained on skills. Sometimes we don't get trained on people. All right.
We certainly don't get trained on people. Just look at the education system. Like, you focus on skills and learning bits of knowledge, but zero or very little about doing things together, and then you're thrown into the marketplace and you only do things together.
Yeah. One of my other, I like that point. One of my other favorite quotes from Jerry Weinberg is, despite what they tell you, it's always a people problem.
Steve, W.E. Deming, the guru for everybody in Lean and Agile, he wrote the same thing in several of his books. For example, Out of the Crisis, he keeps explaining, this is 60s. He kept explaining to people, it's not the people, it's the system in which they're in.
Yeah.
So this is all wisdom, but we humans, even though we know a lot of stuff, doesn't mean we act upon it.
Good point. In pop quiz, does anybody know where Deming is from?
You mean which state in US?
Yes.
No, no.
The other question would be, why would I know? Yeah, because I live in Iowa. Deming is from Iowa. His foundation is based here. Yeah. One of my clients brought somebody in from his foundation to give us a talk one time. It was fabulous. It's one of the areas that I really want to study more. Good call. All right. So I'm going to get into a couple of things. By the way, how are we doing on time? We're at the top of the hour. Do we have another 30 minutes? Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, just about.
Okay, great. And I'll try to save some time for Q&A as well. I wanted to throw a few things up there because working with people can be messy. And if we are trying to find better ways to engage, we don't all need to study a lot of psychology, but there are some things that it might be helpful for. You are going to hear who the victim is. The victims will tell you that they are the victims, and they will tell you who the persecutor is. And a helpful instinct says, I'm going to come in and save the victim. When you make that choice, you have entered the drama triangle. And the interesting thing about the drama triangle is it is not static. So once you save the victim is no longer the victim. Who now becomes the victim? The old persecutor. Because now you made a judgment against a persecutor without hearing their side. You've made statements against them. And now in your attempt to be the rescuer, you have become the new persecutor, and the old persecutor became the new victim. And these get to be very, very messy situations, and I am not qualified to tell you how to properly navigate them. I'm just telling you, be aware. Be aware when there's a victim and a persecutor, the role that you play with that, and try to play it safe. Because getting involved, especially in office politics, can be a very challenging thing to do. And sometimes you might place your bets in the wrong area. The ladder of inference. This, to me, has been something very, very important in my attempts to reach compassion. This is important to me in my ability to understand people. At the bottom, and I recognize that all the words might not be able to be read easily, but at the bottom basically says something happens. There is an event. You could videotape the event and see what happened. Every one of us sees and hears that event, and we will select data from what we observe. Or if you really want to get into human physiology and all that, our brains, our bodies are built to be efficient. We are built to get by without wasting a lot of energy. So for all the different things that come into our senses, our brains are very, very quick at filtering out, selecting the things that you want to see. There's the old video of a juggler on the street and a monkey or a gorilla walk in the background, and people won't see it because they're selecting the data that they want. This is real life. Events happen and people will select the data that they observe. They will add their own meaning to that data based on their own cultural and personal beliefs. They will make assumptions based on the meaning that they added, draw conclusions, and adopt their beliefs about the world. And then outside of that, they will take actions. We don't see what's going on from the first rung to the top rung. All we see is event and action. And there's magic that happens in between there. And this happens for us, and this happens for other people as well. And I bring this up to just recognize that this is happening to all of us and the people that we interact with, and it's just an acknowledgement of what's going on. This is not a software system. We are not writing unit tests where every time the same context is going to give us the same results. So be aware that these types of things are going on and have compassion for the people, because the way that they act might alienate you because they came to a different conclusion that you do, and you might not be happy with them for that reason. We'll dive into that a little bit more, but ladder of inference. The reason I mention that is depending on how we feel about a person, on how they act upon things that happen, may determine the feelings that we send to them. And we might think that we're being very coy in covering that up. But you all know the people who like you, and you know who the people that don't like you. And you don't need them to tell you that they think that you're not smart, or you're not capable, or you're not funny. You feel their feelings. And you cannot control that. So be aware of how you feel, because that is getting transmitted as much as you think you're trying to cover it up. I don't think I'm drunk when I'm drunk. I can have a very logical conversation with my wife and tell her exactly what's going on. I'm fooling myself, right? And I'm annoying the hell out of her too. We're often fooling ourselves with the own emotions that we have. And we think that we might be hiding them, but we're not. So this is one of those areas where having some compassion in choosing maybe not to hate somebody that you work with because they're not doing the thing that you want. Sometimes people don't even mask it. They will explode with anger because what they're doing is different from what they think the person should be doing. And they're frustrated with that. It goes back to things that they want to give and want to receive. So let's jump into kind of solutionizing this. Great job, Dustin. You explained all the problem, but what are we going to do with it? How do we actually change these keys? One thing to recognize is the attraction principle. Is this magnet pushing or pulling, by the way? What does it look like to you? And I don't have a slide up for that question. Maybe a little bit pushing, a little bit pulling. The reason that it's important to me is this is actually, I stole this from Esther Derby. She talked about the attraction principle in her book that I will refer to at the end of the talk. 7 Rules for Positive and Productive Change, I think is the title. She says, rather than putting energy into enforcement efforts and drag people along, go to where the energy is. Emotional ups and downs are part of learning anything new. Those who choose to be part of the learning are more likely to react to roadblocks with problem solving rather than cynicism. The father of mob programming, Woody Zuell, puts it even simpler. Turn up the good. And that is such a simple statement that it is so easy to look past. But the more I've thought about what he said, the more it makes sense. And the happier I've been. Whatever my role is, if people don't want it, I don't want to force it. I find the people that like me, that believe in me, and that want to work with me. I spend the time building those relationships and finding out what they need and seeing if I can help them. Sometimes I need to build up my own skill set because I might not have enough. I had to work with the team doing iOS development, and I don't know iOS development. So I had to learn more iOS development. And now I wish I hadn't. But the attraction principle is, work with those that want to work, find the things, make something work well, and keep turning that up, keep making it better. If you try to fix all the things, it's not going to work. And this is where a focus on power really comes into play. And you might not be aware of different power sources, but you may recognize them when you start thinking about them. Who has legitimate power? Who has the power granted to them because of the hierarchy? The boss. The hierarchy says this is the legitimate power. They have the responsibility and accountability. Who controls the budget? Right? Where do we look for our bonuses? Boni? Where do we look for the boni? What about that protection racket? Who's threatening the next round of layoffs, the next reorg? Who's telling you, hey, join my party and we'll protect you? Or who's controlling the resources? If you need the database team to get your work done, and the head DBA doesn't like you, they're not going to let you get that work. They're going to block you. So this is all positional power. This is a low-level brute force type of power. This is granted to people. Oftentimes those people may not be equipped to handle that position or that power, but that doesn't stop them from it. And just like American politics, I've watched UK politics, we're on the same boat here, right? Personal power. This is not power which is granted to you. It is power which is developed. Referent power. I like you. We like to work with people that we like. So people like you, there's some power there. Do you have expert power? Do you have special abilities? Have you studied a topic that people are curious about? Do you have the ability to fix things well? Do you know certain things? Do you have that information power? Or do you have the connections? Do you just happen to be friends with a lot of people that kind of make things happen? Are you able to work in the shadows of an organization? And even though the formal plan doesn't actually work, you still have all the connections and you still find that way to get your things to production. Right? These are power structures outside of the hierarchy. And these are power structures which are earned. If you're not getting the things that you want, and you're not giving the things that you want to give, you may resort to positional power, threatening people on their job to do a better job in their Scrum, keep their stand-ups to 15 minutes, write the test before you write the code, right? And going back to Maslow's hierarchy, when you leverage these types of things, they can have very real consequences. In the US, we have something called an H-1B. That is a special kind of, oh shucks, what is it? It's not a permanent contract, it's a passport, a visa. So we will have people from other countries visiting the US working on a special work permit. The problem is, though, if they don't have work, they have to move home. And some of these people bring their families over and they send their children to private schools, and they take out a BMW lease and they buy a house. And if you threaten them of losing their job, that means they have to take their daughter out of school and move back to another country at great personal loss. If you hover that over somebody, how do you think they are going to respond to any type of risk? If you feel confident in your own abilities, maybe you've got your house paid off and you have ample savings, and if you lose your job, oh well, your position is very different from theirs. And if you are not aware of that, and you're leveraging this positional power to threaten them, you will get the behaviors you want as long as you apply that pressure. As soon as you quit applying that pressure, they will react to whatever pressure comes next. The changes that you are trying to implement will not stick. And if they don't want, if they're not trying to pull from you the thing that you want to give to them, it is your job to plant seeds. Plant the seeds, emerge the needs. And this takes time. So whatever the thing is that you're trying to influence people around you to do, you might not be able to force it. In software development, we can force deadlines all that we want. I can give you the time and the scope. I'm not going to give you quality. You are going to pay for that later, but we'll say that we're done. And then we'll worry about all the other problems later. A healthier longer-term solution is, can you plant those seeds to emerge in needs? If they don't think that they need Kanban or test-driven development or a testing pyramid, if they don't need to do story mapping, they might be happy with what they have. I've learned different techniques to help plant some of those seeds. Earlier, we saw modeling behaviors, doing the things. Stephen Coe, I worked with him, and he would always ask the same questions with his team. Does the code we have compile? Does the code have tests? Are the tests running? For the fix that we're about to make, does that area of code have test coverage on it? Are those tests passing? Can we add a failing test? He asks the same questions over and over and over until his team starts thinking about those same questions. He's building the model for them. And once they start doing that, they start asking the same question, why don't we have a test for this? Right? They're building the habit. It's not a one-time deal. So there are plenty of different areas to plant those seeds. And we can probably talk about that. I see we're a little bit getting closer on time here. The other thing that you can do is, as you hear all of the things that people are saying, sometimes people use many, many, many words to describe what they're trying to say. You can help them by consolidating that into a clear message with kind messaging. Like I mentioned earlier, I was talking about, I don't want to hate people, I want to understand them, blah, blah, blah. And Christopher Avery says, oh, compassion. Yes, that is the clear, simple message. You can help give the people the message so they can help influence others. And you can help, spread that message. If it's a clear, simple message, people will understand it. If you have kind messaging, they will listen to it. And there's also the concept of holding up the mirror, right? To help people kind of understand. Sometimes I've used the expression, here's the painting I've drawn with the shapes and colors you gave me. Does this resonate? Does this picture look like what you understand it to be? I had a friend who actually put a mirror in front on his refrigerator door as a literal reminder of that. Every time he went to the fridge, he had to look in the mirror and go, still tubby, not going to do it, right? Looking at ourselves objectively can be helpful, and finding, again, a clear and kind way to do that for people can help initiate that change that they want to make. And as you try to implement it, you will find out if people have the skill and the will to do that. If they don't have the skill, you can build that up. If they don't have the will, it may be a little bit more difficult to implement that. Maybe they don't care. And one tool you can use for that is to highlight that lack of will or that lack of changeability. We've used this example before where we would take a team of a software development team and a management team. And we would put this, Renee's nodding his head, he's seeing this good. We would put this on paper with a bunch of sticky notes. Can the team change their name? Can they decide how long their sprints are? Can they decide what stories they're going to select? Can they decide what quality means? Can they decide how much they're going to give each other for bonuses, boni? Can they do these types of things? And it was really fun to watch people do that because the teams would put a lot of their answers in the blue and the gray area. I don't have control over this. I might have some influence on it, but I definitely have concern because this affects me. Meanwhile, the management team would be like, yeah, sure, whatever, I don't care. And they push all the sticky notes or many of the sticky notes into the center. I think the team can handle that decision. I don't care what they call themselves. As long as it's not vulgar, call your team what you want. And the team's thinking, but it's in Jira, that has to be my name. Maybe. If the team doesn't believe that they have control to make any changes, they're going to wish and wait for somebody else to make the changes. And if you think that you're trying to influence the team and you think that you're going to make the changes, you're not. You have to do it together, and they have to have that will. Oh. Yeah, pulled out all the stops here. I am going to pass by this slide. I did want to kind of get to the end here. Last question, as a follower leader, I'll often ask people, where do you see yourself in this progression? Are you the follower? Are you the leader? And any good architect will usually tell you it depends. We may find ourselves switching positions as we need. All right, so in summary, figure out your wants, figure out their wants. This is the core driver. If you do not understand this, you will worry about it later. It will come up. Do some problem discovery. Again, a problem well-defined is a problem half solved. Try to make it clear. And as you're working on the solution, do some seeding, help emerge those needs, and make sure that you're approaching it with extreme clarity. We'll have Q&A now. And would you guys like the regular Q&A slide, or would you guys like the bonus Q&A slide?
Bonus.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on. Indeed. All right. So stupid. This was at 11:30 last night, and it made me laugh. I will tell you though, you will be disappointed at the end, but that's okay. So what questions do we have? We're all mesmerized.
Thank you. Feel free to unmute yourself or pop it in the chat, whatever else. So in the questions that they were submitted beforehand, if I may take the opportunity, we had one that said, what's a good way to influence people with a different cultural background, perhaps being used to getting told exactly what to do? And I thought culture-wise is always interesting to cover.
Yeah, that is a really big one too, because the expectations that people bring in are not conscious. And I've been fortunate enough to learn this. My wife grew up in the Philippines, and we get to learn many different areas, which are things that she never even considered. And when she came over here, well, of course, a magical fairy comes and takes your teeth at the night when you put it under the pillow and leaves you money. And of course, a magical bunny We'll give you chocolates once in the spring. You know, things that I just grew up knowing are fact. And it's fun to expose them as that understanding. So I think the connection goes a long way in there to say, what is it that you believe? And maybe if it's safe, ask why. And also to express kind of how things are maybe expected. That concentric circle may help to highlight, you know, those biases.
Thank you, Dustin. Are there any other questions? Maybe you can just take one or two more questions, depending on feedback.
And by the way, here are some of the books that I have found to be very, very helpful and influential in my journey. This is not comprehensive, but I think a lot of these were things that directly influence the slide deck here.
Thank you. And I'll go on, Renee.
There's a book called Humble Consulting. I'm sure you heard about it.
Humble Consulting? I have not.
I kept thinking about it since I don't know, minute 3 of your presentation. I was thinking, oh, this is going in a direction. In fact, at some point I was convinced you're going to tell us you read the book and that made you want to talk about this thing. You know, you reflected on your career, but I don't see it here. So it's my recommendation. It's the book Humble Consulting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. By the way, the horizontal books are the ones that I buy because they seem like a great idea and I still have to read them. So they're stacked in order of what I'm going to read next. But I have room, so I'm going to buy some more books.
Excellent. I've got a similar sort of process in my office as well. All the horizontal I have to read, all the ones. Yeah. Read and continuously freaking through, and I never get to the ones that I haven't read.
Yeah. When I find a book I like, I actually buy it twice. I buy it once in Audible and once in paperback form, because after I listen to it, you have to go through something about 7 times. So I'll listen to it and then I'll page through it and be reminded of the the images that I had to make up in my mind from Audible and some of the quotes that I like. Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, I don't know if there's anything else from the sort of pre-questions in us that you wanted to highlight.
There are quite a lot, but just looking at them, most of them, we could group them in buckets that sort of the session already cover. Okay. There are a couple in terms of like stories, for example, like the most difficult one or something recent, Dustin, that maybe you want to share, depending of time, if you want to tap into a particular story.
The most difficult?
Yeah, or something recent in terms of, how you were in a situation. Yeah.
I really actually would like to tell that story. And I want to make sure I tell it in such a way where the people involved are not directly called out. But there was a client that I worked with who they were having challenges in their meeting. 2 of the people would really bump heads and the entire meeting would go sideline for an hour. And you just listen to the 2 people arguing with each other. And when I applied these concepts, it was helpful to come up with a theory and then float that theory and then find a resolution. And had I just hated the people because they pissed me off, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. If I wanted to just talk bad about the people, that would have been completely natural, but unhelpful. What I had recognized is that both of the people liked to talk a lot. They demanded to be understood, but they did not do a good job of trying to understand the other person. And one of the people, as I would watch things happen, I would find a very clear trigger. The person was great in the meeting until they weren't. Back up, what just happened? And what I identified is the person was introduced with new information in a meeting in front of other people, and they were asked to make a decision based on the information that was just presented to them that they didn't have time to think about. And we modified that behavior to say, when you're dealing with this person, can you give them that information ahead of time? Can you have a one-on-one focusing on their understanding? Do not push your ideas, but wait until they can tell you what the new information means, which reflects that they understand it. And that 15-minute debrief where it was safe and comfortable and not time challenged, and they weren't going to face any blame for their decisions, that's all it took. And it was a very, very simple thing. And I wasn't sure if that was the case, but when I talked to somebody else, they told me the thing you got to know about this person, and it took me 2 years to understand it. They need to understand things that is important to them to feel confident in the decisions that they make. Cool, we can work with that. That's not unreasonable. Hopefully that was a decent example.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Dustin, and thank you for sharing and being open about that as well. So on that note, it does sort of bring us to the end of our session today. So thank you very much for joining. And Dustin, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights and learnings from your journey here as well. One thing that we do love to have is, as Ines has just popped in the chat there, a bit of feedback about our sessions that we have here at Virtual Agile. Takes sort of, you said a minute, but maybe 30 seconds to fill in. We'd love also to hear what you want us to sort of bring here, like what speakers you'd be interested in, topics, those sorts of things. And hopefully you sort of learned by now that we are trying to source people that you want and topics that you want us to share with you. So please, if you can spend the time, 30 seconds to a minute to feedback on the stuff that's good, bad, and anything that you want to hear about. Pretty much takes us to the end. Dustin, any last words apart from your contact details there?
Yeah, no, I've got the slides here if you wanted to look at them. I am on Twitter. That's I just joke about being on TikTok. I couldn't understand it. But if you do want to engage with me more, please reach out to TikTok and chat more. This concept is really important to me, and I'm very thankful for learning from you guys as well. I've got more books to read now. So thank you.